everyone, I'm Mirela Ciobanu, lead editor with the papers. Welcome to our Leadership Insight series, where we explore the latest trends shaping fraud, compliance, and cybersecurity. Through conversations with industry leaders, we aim to help fraud and compliance professionals stay ahead of regulatory shifts, strengthen collaboration, and align their strategies with emerging best practices. Today, I'm joined by Alin Becheanu, Head of Fraud Monitoring and Prevention at ING Bank Romania, to talk about the latest fraud tactics and prevention methods. In his role, Alin is actively involved in numerous fraud prevention campaigns. He contributes to the development of new, innovative products and services aimed at ensuring the safety of ING consumers. Alin has over 20 years of experience in managing fraud and money laundering risks. And furthermore, he is the president of APCF, the Association for Fraud Prevention and Combating Fraud. Alin, great to have you back with us.
Hi, Mirela. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, it's been about a year since we last spoke. So I'm curious to know if what were the top three headlines, big announcements, or aha moments for you when it comes to fraud and evolving fraud tactics, and what were the biggest learnings behind them?
Okay, well, let me think. I think the first one is never say never. Here, unfortunately, I have an example with the victim that he was fooled 3 times by the same fraudsters. So it started initially with a case of investment scam. And then subsequently, the victim was contacted again, saying that at the end, the investment paid off. And now the person needs to pay the taxes for the revenue, for the respective revenue. And definitely they cannot take it from the amount. It needs to pay separately. Otherwise, they will have to forward it to the fiscal administration and penalties and stuff. And it will be more complicated. And third time, contacted again by the same fraudsters, saying that they are a collection agency and they are on the track of these fraudsters, and they found them. And in order to get back the money, the only thing that he needs to do is to pay a commission in order to get reimbursed. So what we've seen that they have multiple ways of fooling people. It's not like just once. It's a specific scenario for each type of customer. Yeah. Second, not just the bad things. I have also good things. It's like building alliances. This was more of an aha moment that we need to make. Because again, it's very important to understand that you need partners to fight financial crime in general, no matter scams or whatever behind it. Yeah. And here the example is that for many, let's say, months, we had this spoofing phenomenon when people are being called with a number, and of course, it's a fake number impersonating various entities, banks, institutions, and so on, police, saying that they need to immediately send the money to a specific account and stuff like that, or they got a loan was approved, and the only thing that they need to do is actually contact the bank. And of course, after a couple of minutes, contacted by police and by law enforcement and so on, and asked to send the money into a specific account or deposit the money into a cryptocurrency. Everything was fake, and they were actually taking advantage of the fact that that was a spoofing phone number. And what we did was to actually get in contact with our regulator, with the law enforcement, and was a very successful story, because at the end we succeeded to block the spoofing for landline numbers. So from July last year, almost, I think July, August, we stopped this phenomenon for landlines specifically. And number 3, I would say persistency pays off at the end. Several years ago, we had an ambition to use geolocation as a tool to detect phishing and any sorts of account takeover and stuff like that. And we would ask customer to give us the consent in order to get the GPS location of his device that was used in order to authenticate into the banking app. So it was more like a volunteering process that needed to give a lot of confidence to the customer in order to enroll into this feature. And after, I would say, almost 2 years, we reached almost 80% of the population of the entire portfolio enrolled in the specific geolocation feature. So again, just being persistent, if you have an ambition to protect the customer, it really pays off. And this way we can save a lot of victims from becoming victims.
Yeah, I love the fact that you started with a story of criminals' persistencies with tricking that guy 3 times with investing and tax collection and everything. But then you ended also with the persistency, but coming from the good guys. And this,
Yes.
in a way, keeps me more relaxed during this discussion. However,
Right.
you also mentioned there are some types of fraud like investment scams, spoofing. And I was curious to set the scene first. What are the main types of fraud that you are encountering at consumer level today?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say number one right now is the investment scam. And usually this comes with a little bit of a tweak with the remote access tool, you know. So at the beginning, the victim is somehow fooled by the attacker that as he's not being that technical, he needs some, let's say, specific support in order to install on his device the app that will allow him to transfer the money from the actual investment tool to his banking account. What he actually does when he actually presses OK, he actually installs on his device a remote access tool such as AnyDesk, TeamViewer, and so on. There are a lot of these applications. And from that moment on, let's say the attacker has full access to his device and he can do a lot of things on his banking app also and stuff like that, you know. So that would be number one. Second,
Just
yeah,
one thing. And how usually does this happen? I mean, is by customers scanning QR codes, or how
well,
do
no,
this
it's more
penetration
simple than
happens?
that. Is he just receives either a WhatsApp message saying, you know, you have a
Oh,
link here, just install here, and usually he gets like either an APK or maybe an app or whatever.
okay, okay.
He just installs on his device, and then the next step is to say, you know, now I need to connect your banking app to our so-called investment tool, and please log in into your banking app. And from that moment on, he has full control also on the app. He has full control on his email, on his SMSs that he receives, and so on. You know, so it's very easy from that point to perform any sorts of transaction on his account. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Uh,
Go with
Now,
the second type.
yeah, I would say maybe thinking from a, I would say, old approach, phishing. Phishing is still something that has been with us, I would say, for many, many years. And unfortunately, will still remain with us because people tend to be, let's say, not that responsible when dealing with links, with SMSs, with emails, and so on, and say, okay, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to have my account blocked. I don't want to have my, I don't know, my bank telling me that I cannot use my funds and so on. Or maybe it's a message from so-called police, Europol, Interpol, whatever, fiscal administration, and people are very much pressed into making a decision. I need to fix this right now. And then immediately comes with the solution, you know, go on this link. This is the solution. Go on this link and enter your credential, either the card details or the credentials for the mobile app and so on. Yeah. And last but not least is the part with the impersonation. Either it's a bank impersonation or an authority impersonation. This is something that remains also a significant threat because just imagine that you are talking to me right now and you get a call from somebody that says, you know, I'm Commissioner John Doe from the police, and we identified that your account has been compromised and you now have to transfer your money into a safe account. And immediately you are, let's say, stressed with the idea that something may happen to your account or to your funds and so on. And people tend not to be that, how to say, rational on these moments. So the most rational thing that you can do is just hang up the phone and call the police or call the bank, the so-called person that called you. Yeah. So call that person, but not on the same phone number that you received the call, but if it's a bank, call on the number that you have on the back of your card, yeah, because you have a contact number there, and call the bank and say, no, you just called me because you told me I had the loan approved or my account was compromised or something. So if it's something suspicious, just do the simple thing, hang up and call back, yeah, but on a number that is somehow from an independent source, car number or from internet or whatever, from the website of the authority and so on.
Yeah, and if you think about business or corporate level, what types of fraud are we encountering there?
Well, I think it depends on the company. If it's like an SME, usually what you find there is also a little bit of an investment scam, because people like the entrepreneurs or CEOs and so on of those companies tend to be somehow interested also as a private individual, but also on a company to maximize their income. They don't have like specific flows. They don't have I don't know, a policy in place to how to invest, financial discipline and stuff like that. So usually when they find an opportunity, they usually tend to benefit from that. Yeah. So you also see some cases of investment scams. But in general, what we see is more like either business email compromise. Yeah. So pretending to be the CEO of the company or the chief financial officer and so on. And it keeps coming back to me the case from Hong Kong where some CFO was impersonated and using deepfake, the employee of the company sent like $25 million thinking that he was actually speaking to the CFO of the company. So this kind of things happen. This is why it's very important to have a procedure, a payment procedure in place, so no matter the CEO is actually contacting you and saying, transfer 1 million to that account, then the first logical thing is, okay, I will just either send you by Teams or by email or an official company communication line or something like that, just to confirm this kind of things. If you don't have a policy in place, you should have like a segregation of duties, so nobody can actually perform a $1 million transaction without having like a 4 eyes principal check or stuff like that. Yeah. And what I've seen is also working very well is this part with the invoice fraud, just hacking into the vendor's email address or impersonating a vendor and sending a fake invoice to the client saying, for this month you have to pay in this account. Usually the client is not that focused on the account change, because what this fake invoice has is a fake account number, a different account number from the standard one, and he just automatically sends out the money, and 3 weeks later or 1 month later, he gets notified by the real vendor saying, you are overdue with the invoice, just please pay it, but I already paid. How come it's not registered with your account, So this is also something that we see as being a threat also for SMEs, but also for corporate companies. Yeah.
Yeah, regarding the example you gave with the CEO impersonation fraud, from what I remember, the criminals used lots of tools that are dependent on the AI. They created the setup,
Correct.
the voices, the people. And then
Correct.
I was also thinking about the fake invoice. Maybe AI could also be used to forge documents, to create quite authentic ones. And yeah, with the use of all these LLMs for the last 12 months, have you observed new fraud patterns or tactics that are enabled by this that before you wouldn't have think about it?
Well, let's put it like this. Maybe just start with the conclusion. The cost for using AI is diminishing on a daily basis. Yeah. So I was actually looking on the cost for the specific case in Hong Kong, and the estimation was because it was a very good deep fake done, the material. It was somewhere around like 50K per minute. Yeah, so $50,000. That was somehow the estimation. Right now, my estimation is that it's 10 times lower. Yeah, so 2 years later, this is 10 times lower because again, you have so many options and we see so much progress in terms of the quality of the video with less resources. And this is becoming an enabler for the fraudsters because again, you get from similar cases like this one to maybe online onboarding, you know, so you can go to a bank and say, I want to open an account remote using online, and I can fake the identity of the individual, presenting that I'm Mirela, I'm going to use a fake, using AI, I'm going to use a fake selfie and so on, and make it very easy in order to go through the entire process and open an identity and an account on your behalf. Yeah. So this is something that we see as a, let's say, an emergent threat because using AI can give you a lot of opportunities.
So yeah, this idea of opening bank accounts by fraudsters and bypassing digital onboarding, yeah, sounds not that nice. Also thinking about compliance and the money muling and using these accounts to, yeah, make dirty money clean. But we talked a lot about this scary part, and now let's talk about let's talk protection. How can banks keep customers better protected?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think we need to look to the, let's say, the relationship between the bank and the customer as a partnership. So first of all, it needs to be a partnership that has a specific goal. The goal is to protect the customer, but also to empower the customer to be part of the process of the, let's say, the entire chain, in order to make sure that he's not just a click man, but he's also part of the defense system. Yeah. Because what I've seen that usually banks are very much focused on creating system over systems and so on. But at the end, the weakest link remains the customer and his education. If he's not, let's say, informed about the fraud trends, if he's not aware of the fact that somebody using his credential can log into his account easily and transfer his money, then just imagine that you're just building a very huge castle, but you just leave the back door open. So pretty much this is how it is. Yeah. And when I say partnership, I think you have both of them have responsibilities. So on one hand, I think banks need to offer systems, real-time decision systems, in order to make sure that you can immediately take action, because right now we are speaking about instant payment. We are not speaking about transaction like in cutoffs and stuff like that, but you are speaking about instant payment. That means in a couple of seconds, the money will reach the destination. And what we've seen that fraudsters are very well organized. So they have also the end process. That means the money laundering setup. So when the victim is actually fooled and the money are being transferred, at the other end, the persons are prepared to take out the money and transfer it to other destinations. Yeah. So this is one. Second, I think awareness. This is something that you need to have embedded into your processes. Yeah. To make awareness, constant awareness to the customers. And again, speaking for all the customers, because you have customers that are very much maybe pragmatical people that customers that like to be more, let's say, amused about the education that you make. So it needs to be flavored on the specific type of customer. So not just saying, I'm going to put a message when I open the banking app and saying, you know, have you heard about phone spoofing? And that's it. And the customer needs to click OK and my part is done. No, I don't think that works. I think that works a little bit for a specific type of customers. This is how you need to design your strategy, to have layered based on the customer profile, you know, thinking that you have different types of customers. Then I think it's very important to have specific functionalities. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. We launch geolocation. So you just take the location of the device when the customer authenticates, and you can actually spot that the customer is being in Bucharest, and a couple of minutes later, you see another authentication from Madrid. So it's a little bit quite difficult to be in two places in the same time. So this kind of detection is very important. What else? Imagine that I'm calling you, Mirela, and I'm impersonating the bank saying, you know, your loan was approved. And you say, but I'd never applied for a loan. Oh, then it means that definitely you are hacked by fraudsters, and I'm going to transfer you to the police in order to make sure that you are being secured. And the next thing, you get called by a police officer, and he tells you, you know, you need to make a loan in order to make sure that the fraudster will not be able to actually take a loan on your behalf, because this way you can actually limit your exposure, because definitely if you're going to maximize your loan exposure by taking now a loan, nobody else can take an additional loan after that. And when you take the loan, then you need to secure the money into a specific place. Either go to a crypto ATM or go or transfer it to a so-called secure account. Yeah. And all this happens during the phone. So what would actually happen if you would be informed by the banking app that during the call, you are not supposed to make a transfer? So it just gives you a pop-up message saying, you know, if you are making a transaction right now, and we detected that you are also in a call, this is something suspicious, and you should not continue this process. You should actually hang up the phone and contact your bank in order to make sure that there's nothing wrong with your account or something like that. So this kind of approach is also part of this strategy of empowering the customer and making him also part of the decisional process. Yeah. Imagine that you get a suspicious transaction, yeah, and you have two options. Either as a bank, you contact the customer, or you inform the customer either by giving him an interactive notification, you know, giving him a pop-up message saying, you know, we noticed this transaction on your account. Would you definitely like to continue? Because it's a little bit different from your normal spending pattern. And this way, you also involve the customer into the decision process, you know, so he's very much aware of the situation. And some of the customer really appreciate when you give them this kind of warning, because it gives them the comfort that somebody is actually watching on their funds, and the way that they, let's say, may become victim. Yeah, because this may happen for anyone. It's not something particular. Yeah. Last but not least, I think it's very important to focus also on partnerships. As I mentioned initially, we had a success story with our partners, the law enforcement, the police, and the regulator, the telco companies, by stopping the spoofing. You know, so we made this partnership and came with the problem. You know, we need to focus on fixing this part of phone spoofing, because otherwise people start losing trust in the system, in the payment process, and so on. You know, so you need to make sure that they are making responsible business and responsible decisions. So they need a little bit of help. So having this kind of partnership with various stakeholders, like telco companies, like law enforcement agencies, it's very helpful. And just giving you a quick example, in some of the states, when you actually are becoming a victim, the only way that you can report a fraud is by going to a police station and filing up a complaint. So imagine that on one side, you have the fraudsters that are sending money from one account to another using seconds, and you, on the other hand, are going to fix the issue by going in to the police and signing a document, and somebody will take that complaint and start doing the investigation. What are the odds of actually winning this battle if everything is paper-based on behalf of the good guys, and on the other side everything is tech? You know, so this kind of things needs to change. Otherwise, it's just going to be, I would say, a not very successful story for the law enforcement. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But Yeah, but also looking from the other end, looking from the customer perspective, I think this part with responsibility needs to become something that is mandatory also. So I would say for customer, they need to have two things. One is to keep their credentials safe. Yeah, it's their responsibility. They need to understand that credentials are pretty much like the keys to your car or to your house. If you give somebody the keys to your house, you need to expect that somebody may come in and take some of the things that you really like. So it's pretty much the same. So you need to acknowledge this, um, I would say, significantly, because otherwise, thinking that my money is somewhere in a basement in a bank, it's not the way it's going to help. No, if you give them your credential, then you give them the access to your funds. Yeah. And last but not least is also keeping informed, so it's also our responsibility as a consumer to make sure that we are also being updated with the latest trends, so when somebody is going to tell you, Mirela, that he's calling the bank and your loan was approved, and the only thing that you need to do is actually stay on the line to discuss with the police officer or to a national bank officer or whatever other scheme, you are well prepared and you know exactly that these things can never happen. And the first logical thing that you need to do is stop, hang up, and call the bank to discuss the issue. Yeah, these kind of steps are something that is, I would say, like first aid. How you teach people to take the first aid when somebody is being injured, pretty much the same. You need to understand that you also have a responsibility to be prepared. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the beginning, when we started, I was again a bit scared about all these fraud activities that can happen to anyone, and how easy it is for anyone to be fooled. But then I took notes and I see here that there are more than 6 points that are enabling customers to keep themselves protected, and also the bank is keeping them safe.
Right.
That in a way, yeah, it's not an excuse for neither the customers or the other institutions to prevent fraud from happening. And what I love most is the fact that this relationship between bank and consumer customers, it starts to be more than just authority and I don't know, an entity that is interacting with that authority. It's becoming more like a parent and child relationship where the parent tries to empower and educate and yeah, help the child become independent in the life, and to yeah, detect things and yeah, learn from mistakes, and also know that it has its back covered. Because from what you are saying, yeah, the bank is now also collaborating with law enforcement, yeah, other authorities, police, to keep the consumer safe, which
Right.
is a nice thing to see how the relationship has evolved. Especially we talk about all the time personalization of services, and most of the time we think about, yeah, how the bank, I don't know, is maybe sometimes pushing some solutions, but on the other hand is also doing things to keep you protected and safe. So yeah, it's a nice wrap up to how to get protected. And now, yeah, to conclude our conversation today, I'm curious to learn what is one I don't know, theme or issue that you feel is too often missing from fraud prevention conversations in banking and urgently needs more attention.
Well, the first thing that comes into my mind is the new regulation, the PSR. And I think again, my personal opinion is that is not actually dealing with the root cause, because reimbursing the victims is not the way to go forward. And I'm saying this because I'm looking that in some of the cases will just make customer less responsible, because you will always know that I have a safety net. So it's really up to the bank to make all the protection. It's not my responsibility. In case I get defrauded, then I will go back to the bank and I will ask for reimbursement. So this is not the way that it should be considered. It should go more on what do you guys, the banks, need in order to be better in fraud prevention and in stopping this phenomenon? So unfortunately, I don't see this discussion on anybody's table. It's more focused on how do we actually reimburse the victims, but it's not the way that it should go forward. It should focus more on the root causes and the way that you actually fix this, you know. And I'm looking up a couple of things. We had some discussions on this kind of, let's say, solutions like data exchange, like how do we actually communicate with the banking community, but also with other stakeholders. And I see so little discussions on the solutions and the way that we should do this, because this I do encourage this kind of an approach where you exchange data, where it's much easier to take decisions in order to stop this phenomenon, rather than just focusing on how do we reimburse the customers. I'm not saying that banks do not have a responsibility, but in most of the cases, just imagine that we are speaking about manipulation. Yeah. So customer is being manipulated. And my question is, if somebody is going to, I don't know, to a trader or to a broker, and he actually buys stocks, and the stocks at the end do not actually fulfill the needs of the individual. Yeah. So the value drops or something like that. Does that person, uh, is it reimbursed? I don't think so. You know, so most of these scams are based on investment scams, you know. So nobody's coming to say, I'm going to reimburse you if that value will not be paid off at the end, you know. So this kind of a logic with giving back the money, it's not the way that it should be on the regulator's table, on the people that are taking the decision on how this should look like, but more focused on how can we enhance the tools that the bank have, and not thinking just the bank, because in through this process, this, let's say, fraud process flow, is not just the bank. Usually the bank is just at the end. But as I mentioned, you also have like telco companies that you get an SMS, right? A spoofing or a phishing SMS or a spoofed call, or you have the, let's say, the social media companies where all these ads, and I think I saw a lot of, let's say, articles mentioning that 90% of the fraud cases are coming from social media, you know. So how come I don't see on the table, on the part of the responsibility, the social media? I'm saying, how come you allow anyone to make a sponsored ads with a specific, I don't know, investment opportunity and stuff like that, without having the right due diligence, you know, like a KYC process or something like that? Because I was looking, no matter the company, like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and so on, that I report on a constantly base this kind of scams, yeah, like investment scams, deepfakes, or whatever, because this is usually how it works. You take I don't know, a VIP, you fake his voice, his image, and so on, and then he starts promoting a specific investment scheme, you know. And people usually get more credibility from having the image of the individual that is VIP with the actual scheme, you know. So it gives more trust that this is the right way. So I'm doing all this reporting, but on the other end, it should be not something that is, how should I put it, like open garden. It should be like a fenced garden with the security measures, with due diligence, pre-screening, or whatever you call it, to make sure that, one, the ad that you put it on the social media is something that is relevant, does not contain deepfake, and the message is something that is not encouraging an investment scheme, a fraud investment scheme, you know. So making this kind of due diligence is a must. And I'm going to give you a short example. If you go to the media and you want to put an ad into the newspaper, I think you have a person that will actually review the ad prior to actually publishing, because you can say there, I'm just going to sell guns or drugs or, I don't know, any other illegal stuff, you know. So there is a person there that actually knows what is behind the ad and validates that this is a safe way of communicating to people. because somehow we get this tendency that liberty is something that gives us the opportunity for anything, but you also have the responsibility of having, let's say, decent and valid messages sent to the population, and not just putting anything there, everything that you want, so this kind of approach, it should be something that it's a must on the regulators table, on all people that have decision power.
Yeah, great. I take as a keyword here for the last question, this idea of responsibility coming
Correct.
from, so if before you mentioned more about the responsibility coming from the bank to protect customers, but also customers to be aware of
Correct.
what's happening. Now we're talking about responsibility of all the parties involved,
Correct.
social media, telecom, and others. And it's nice that you gave me a different twist. The one thing that is missing from fraud prevention conversation, because this is a point to continue our conversation in another episode.
Mhm. Definitely.
Yeah, great. So thank you, Alin, for today's call. It has been
Thank you.
a knowledge feast. I took here notes, and yeah, I look forward to, as I mentioned, to continue our conversation. And again, congratulations for approaching this idea of keeping consumer protected by empowering them.
Thank you, Mirela.